Hello, hello, friends. Happy New Year. I'm so excited for 2019 to be here. It's crazy how flipping over that calendar page makes you feel like you have this fresh new start and you can do everything different. You can eat better and you can work out more and you can grow your business. And while I know that you can really choose to do that any day during the year, I do feel that little bit of magic you get at the beginning of and have already had some exciting things happen for the beginning of my year. So I wanted to jump on today and chat about the one thing I feel like has made the biggest difference for me. The one thing I do that I think most other people don't do that I honestly believe is what has allowed me to have so much success in my business and even in some of the endeavors I had before this was an official business a few years back. Hi, I'm so excited to get back in the groove with going live. I am going to try to go live here in the group at least a couple of times a week going forward. I want to spend a little more time with you all, and instead of the quick 3 to 5 minute lives I do on my business page where I'm just like in and out teaching something, leaving again. I want to be here and interact with you and chat with you. I also know that Facebook doesn't always like to show me when you're chatting with me, so I am going to cheat and bring this up on my phone at the same time. I'm so excited to see what everybody is working on in the new year. So if you've got big goals for 2019, maybe you decided to adopt a word of the year, I would love to hear about it. And in fact, if you are friends with me and see what I post on my personal profile, I talked a little bit this morning about something exciting that happened and somebody responded and told me that her word of the year is ask. Such an awesome word. And if you don't know the story behind it, you might be thinking ask, like, do I want to have to ask for permission for anything? No, like I'm just going to go do it. But you'll understand why ask is such a great word when I tell you this story. If you're here live, say hi. Okay, so I said I'm going to share with you the biggest thing I feel like has made a difference for me that the vast majority of the people that I work with and that I get on the phone with aren't doing. And it's something so simple that any of you can do. And if you've followed me for any amount of time, you've probably even heard me say it before. But it is my willingness to send anyone, I mean, literally anyone, an email and tell them what it is I want, to ask for what I want. Asking permission. I'm someone else, someone I need to help me make my dreams come true, to help me accomplish the things that I want to accomplish. Hi, Veronica. So this time, what it was, and as you can see in how I titled the video, it's not like this is the first time, but this time what it was is back over the holidays, I had committed that I was going to work on writing my fiction manuscript. I've actually written, I've written a lot of partial fiction manuscripts over the years, and I've written one complete one, but I got my nonfiction book deal and kind of went down the road with that, ended up with 2 of them, never went back to my fiction manuscript. And I had decided I wanted to start over and that I was going to use some of my time during the holidays to really map out what my book was going to be and to start writing it. And so as I dug in and started writing it, I really felt like I wanted someone on this journey with me, a coach, a mentor, someone like that. I know how to write a fiction manuscript. I've done it before. I have a literary agent and she'll give me feedback once I get a certain amount of the way through my manuscript. But I really felt like I needed somebody to hold me accountable, somebody that I could bounce ideas off of, someone I could ask questions. You know, I'm so used to having a coach for my business, and I've seen what that's done for my business. I very, very close to double, if I round it up, I doubled my revenue this year. And that is thanks in huge part, and I guess not this year, last year, 2018. I forget, we flipped 2019 already. In 2018, I very nearly doubled my revenue, and it was thanks in large part to my coach, Lacey Seitz. And I think it's so important to reinvest in my business by having a coach. In fact, I hired a speaking coach the last couple of months of the year, and my time with Lacey is up. So I actually just hired a new business coach that I'm moving on with. I'm constantly working who can help me get to that next level, who can help me get past where I'm stuck, who can see my blind spots, point them out to me. I just so appreciate that. And I've seen what coaching can do for me. And so I thought, why don't I have a coach working with me on this fiction manuscript? So I looked at a couple of book coaches I was aware of. I am a member of the Women's Fiction Writing Association, Fiction Writers Association, and I looked at a mentorship program that they have, and actually I did sign up for it and get a mentor, but I felt like I wanted something more hands-on, and I looked at a couple of kind of book coaches in the women's fiction arena and looked at their packages, and I was like filling out the form for one of them even. And then it occurred to me, I thought, if I could have anyone in the world coach me through writing this book, who would it be? And two authors, really three authors that I read who I love, who all write women's fiction, which is what I'm writing. I thought that would be amazing to have one of them be my book coach. Like, if I were gonna, like, you know, and I could pick who I wanted to work with, it would be one of the three of them. And two of the three I've had like extended conversations with on social media before. One of them I've even emailed back and forth with before. And in fact, I had just emailed her earlier in December to tell her thank you for a blog post that she wrote years ago that taught me how to pitch magazines. And that's how I first started writing for magazines. And I was telling her, not only have I written for now Glamour and Parents and Men's Health and Woman's Day and Golf Digest and all of these magazines, thanks in large part to reading her blog and learning how to pitch for magazines, but I do it for clients now. I've placed clients in a bunch of magazines. So I was thanking her for that, and it occurred to me, and that was long before I'd ever thought about approaching her for but it's not like she doesn't know who I am. Okay, we've talked on social media over the course of, gosh, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. I'm not even sure the first time I emailed her. We've had a few emails here and there, like one a year, maybe, not a lot, but I thought she'd recognize my name. And I sent the thank you, and she did recognize my name. So then when I'm thinking about like who I would want to be my book coach, I thought, you know what, this one person, and I'm not saying her name because I'm not ready to share who it is. I haven't really asked her permission to say publicly who it is, but I hope I get to, because I'm super excited. But I decided that's who I would want to work with if I was going to write a book. And I looked on her site, and I didn't see any kind of services or anything. I've never seen her mention coaching. I mean, as far as I knew, she doesn't do that. But I sent her an email anyway, and I said, hey, I don't think you really do this, but like, do you know someone you would recommend? You know, I really want to hire a coach to help me write my manuscript. You know, this is where I'm at with it, whatever. And she emailed me right back, and she said, you know what, I've been trying to decide what I'm going to do next. She had just finished the screenplay for one of her novels that's been optioned for a movie, and she was trying to decide what her next project was going to be. And she said, I've always been really interested in mentoring someone or in coaching. Maybe this is the right thing for me. You know, what did you have in mind? And so I sent her a couple of the packages I had looked at and said, you know, this is what I'm looking for, and was looking at doing with someone else, but I'd much rather do it with you. Like, you're who I would want to work with. And after several emails back and forth and sort of hammering out the details, she's my book coach. And I am so excited. She is a New York Times bestselling author. She has had 2 of her books optioned to become major motion pictures. She's a name, I think, that if you read women's fiction, you would probably recognize, and if not, you probably will when the movies come out. So I'm super excited. And the thing is, what if I hadn't asked? You know, it's not on her website. It's not something she's ever talked about doing. And in fact, I've now found out she's not done it. What if I hadn't asked? And there's this great quote I saw really early on when I was founding my publicity firm. And I'm sure I still have it somewhere if I dig through my archives, but it said something about Stop saying no for other people. Give them the opportunity to say yes. Think about that. Stop saying no for other people and give them the opportunity to say yes. If you don't ask the question, you can't get the yes. If you don't pitch a podcast and ask to be a guest, you can't get the spot. If you don't pitch a guest blog and ask to write for them, you're not going to get it. If you don't pitch to be up on that stage speaking, you're not going to be up on that stage speaking, okay? You have got to ask for what you want. Now, if you build your business for years and years and you're out there and you're visible on social media, will you eventually get people who come to you and say, hey, I want you to be a guest on my podcast? Sure. You'll have friends and peers and groups that'll ask you to be on their podcast. But could you be on a bigger podcast right now? Could you be growing your audience by being interviewed on a podcast right now? The answer is yes. I don't even have to know who you are or what you do. Yes, there's a podcast out there for everyone that you could be on right now. There's no doubt in my mind. Take a look at the comments here. Oh yeah, Veronica says, my favorite quote is, a closed mouth never gets fed. So true. Have you ever watched like a mama bird feeding the baby birds? What do? They sit in the nest with their mouth open and they squawk and make all kinds of noise until their mother drops something in it. Okay. You've got to ask for what you want. It's not being pushy. It's not annoying. It's not bothering the other person. Now, if she hadn't replied to me and I had like followed up the next day and been like, hey, did you get my email? And followed up the next day and said, hey, just seeing if you got my email. Yes, annoying. Yes, probably not going to say yes to me. You got to do it the right way, but don't let that paralyze you from sending that first email. If you haven't heard me say it before, when you're asking for something, whether it's to speak on a stage or be interviewed on a podcast or write a guest blog or whatever, and even in the situation I was in, send the first email and then wait 10 to 14 days before you follow up. And I would follow up with the person because you never know what happens. You know that emails get lost or overlooked or marked as read even though they haven't been, or the other person opened your email and then they got by something and they never came back to it. I mean, there's a million reasons why somebody doesn't respond to an email, and only one of those reasons is that they were going to say no. So absolutely follow up. And you've probably heard me say the number before. We get more than 60% of what we land for our clients on the follow-up email. So follow-up emails, very, very important. But I think the hurdle most of you probably need to get over is just sending the email in the first place. In fact, I had someone who came on my last retreat and she said, Christy, I don't need help writing my pitches. They're already written. They've been written for a year, but I haven't sent any of them. And that happens a lot. I talk to a lot of clients who know exactly where they want to be. They know exactly what podcast they want to be on, exactly where they want to guest blog, exactly what stages they want to be on, but they haven't sent the email. Either they don't know what to say in the email, or like my client that came on the retreat, they've written the email and they just can't hit send for a myriad of different reasons. But here's the thing. If you don't send the email, the person can't say yes to you. If you don't ask for what you want, you aren't going to get it because you're not giving the give it to you. And it's amazing how when we speak these goals, not only do we empower that other person to make it come true for us, to say yes to us, but even if they can't help us for some reason, they're not the right fit, it's amazing how many times they say, but I want to introduce you to this person. Have you thought about doing this? Quite often they can make introductions or send you down a better path. And the more we speak about the things that we want, the more we take action to accomplish them. People talk about, let the universe know what you want and it'll give it to you. And while I believe that that's true at some level, I also think that once we start saying our goals out loud, like I want to do a TEDx this year, or for me, I want to finish writing my fiction novel this year. The more we say those things out loud, the more likely we are to hold ourselves accountable to do those things. So I've now said publicly several times that I'm going to write this fiction manuscript in 2019. I've now committed to a mentor and to a coach. I've committed to them a certain number of words per day that I'm going to write, a certain number of pages per week that I'm going to send to them. Everyone's personality is different. That's what works for me. I work best when I have a deadline. That's probably because I'm a former journalist. So I work best when I have a deadline. I work best when I have tight parameters, when I know what's expected of me. So if you say, I need to get you 10 pages a week, I'm going to get them to you. So, you've got to find what works for you. But the bottom line is, the more you talk about it, the more people you tell about what it is you want to do, not only does it hold you accountable to do the things that are in your control to make it happen, but it also gives other people the opportunity to help you achieve that goal. Even if they're not the person who can make it happen, like I said, quite often they can introduce you to the person who can make it happen. Veronica said, I interviewed on a podcast this year, but I haven't shared it yet. One step at a time. Please share it. Okay, that'll take me down a kind of new path, in that I got an email today from a writer we worked with at Forbes to get one of our clients featured. And the client's feature came out like mid-December, and the writer said, I haven't seen your client share the piece. Is he going to? And I was like mortified that my client hadn't shared it. One, you would think he'd be so freaking excited that he would have shared it, because he would have been so excited to be a big major outlet, and then he would have wanted to tell his audience about it, because that gives him credibility with people who are thinking about working with him. It's a huge credibility builder to be featured by this outlet. So you think he'd be so excited he'd share it. But on top of that, most writers either get paid on views, or they get bonuses on views, or they're somehow judged based on their views. So if they write about you, you need to do them the professional courtesy of sharing it, of helping them get the listens on their podcast or the views on the guest blog. Because if you don't, they'll never work with you again. And it can really damage the next opportunity. So for example, this particular piece the client got, you can see how many views it's had, and it's only had like 300 views. If I now pitch him to another writer at another outlet, they Google him, they come across this, they see it only has 300 views, they're going to be like, well, no one's really interested in his story, so we think we'll pass. And you would be amazed how much writers and podcast hosts and everybody else talk to each other. So don't burn a bridge by not sharing. I beg of you, Veronica, please share it. Not only is it going to be beneficial to you, for your audience to see you, it's going to position you as an expert. It's going to give you credibility. So not only is it going to be fantastic for your audience and for the people that have been thinking about working with you, but it really is a professional courtesy to the person who had you on, because they want to be delivering value to their audience, and they want to, one, if you don't share it, they think you weren't excited about being on, that it meant nothing to you, that you didn't care about it. Like it would really upset. It does really upset me. I write about people all the time, and it really upsets me when they don't share it on social media. You said, I feel like I wasn't as big as her other interviews. No, don't think that. She made that decision, okay? If she decided to have you on, it was because she thought you had value to bring to her audience, okay? She's already judged you. That hard part's already over. She already believed you were good enough to be on her podcast, okay? And at some level, you believed you were good enough because you pitched yourself for it. Or maybe she asked you to be on, I don't know. But absolutely share it. It's a professional courtesy to her. It shows her that you were excited to be on. And I always word it like, I'm excited to join, Amber's podcast today and talk about blah, blah, blah. Show her you were excited to be on, that you had a good time. You're so grateful that she had you on. And it's also going to, like I said, give you that credibility too with your own audience. Veronica said, I'm so embarrassed though, I sounded so green. It is public, and also it is a video, and I pitched myself. Yeah, look, in the beginning, your interviews are not going to be as polished as they're going to be down the road. I mean, I have plenty of TV segments and radio interviews that I did in the beginning that I go back and listen to now, and I cringe. But at the time, it was what I had, and I shared it So I beg of you, please, please, please share it, because I think it's so important, not only for you and the credibility it can give you in front of your own audience, but it's so important for your relationship with that podcast host too. So I beg of you to share it. And in fact, between this conversation and the conversation I had with my client this morning who hadn't shared this feature from a few weeks ago, I think that might be the topic of my next live. And why it's so important to share these opportunities once you have them, and how much you should be sharing them. Because most of mine, I don't just share it once. I share it when it comes out, and then I put it into my content bank in Meet Edgar so that it's going to be recycled and shared again in the future. When I have a podcast interview, I put up a blog post on my website, and I put the image for the podcast, and I put a little information about what I talked about, and then I link over to the podcast. You know, if you're going to take the time to do podcast interviews or write guest blogs or whatever kind of publicity it is, then you got to take the time to publicize it too, and to really leverage it and get all the value you can out of the time you've spent doing that. All right, she says she's going to share it. Yes, do. Yeah, and Veronica said, ask them if they were embarrassed too. Maybe they didn't like it. No, for what I still don't understand. I think the person was just busy, and it was close to the holidays, and I think just got distracted and didn't put it up. They were super excited about the piece. It's an author who had a book come out, and it was a feature on the book in a major publication. So I think it just wasn't a priority, but they're correcting it and sharing it now. So that's all that's important. But maybe I'm going to make that my topic for later this week or early next week, about how you should be leveraging the opportunities you have, how you share them, how often, how you can take that one opportunity and leverage it to get the next opportunity. So that's a great topic for my next live. I will write that down so that I won't forget, and come back to that either later this week or early next week. Okay. I think that's sort of my diatribe on this particular topic. Don't be afraid to say what you want. I got sort of introduced to an editor by email, and I ended up pitching him on this book idea that I had, and then I got my first television segment because I sent an email to the producer of the show and was like, hey, if you ever need a guest, you know, I can come on and talk about legal issues in sports, and told them all about myself. Not only did I get that segment, but I ended up getting a weekly recurring segment for almost 2 years. I got my contributor role with Forbes like 10 years ago through just a random email that I sent. It wasn't even really a pitch, actually. It was like commenting on an article the editor wrote. And then I had my blog in my email signature, instead of reading my blog and inviting me to come contribute. And then I was trying to look at the things I named in my post. Oh, and my husband. So if you haven't heard me tell this story before, my husband is in radio. He's a programming director now, but he used to be a producer on a show and was also on air. And I pitched to be on his show. He had a sports radio show, and I was doing commentary on legal issues in sports at the time. And I pitched to be on his radio show, and he did not have me on. But later ended up asking me out. We got in sort of a Twitter fight about something they were talking about on the air, and he went back and found my email because he recognized we went together, and he ended up emailing me and asking me out. So I always say the most successful pitch I ever sent, I didn't land the radio interview, but I landed a husband. So there you go. Never be afraid to send an email. I mean, think about how different my life would be if I wasn't willing to just like send an email. I probably wouldn't have met my husband. I wouldn't have gotten my first book deal, so I probably wouldn't have gotten my second book deal, which was even bigger. It had an advance, and I had a literary agent, a big New York publishing house. I have made like multiple six figures from speaking based on that book, so I never would have gotten any of that. Most of my like initial speaking I would have never gotten if I hadn't sent emails. I wouldn't have a New York Times bestseller as my book coach now. What else? My first law firm I worked in, that's because I kind of made friends with one of the attorneys when school, and I kept emailing him and getting advice on how to interview with the firm and ended up getting a job there. So like literally my entire life, my entire path, not just my career, but my personal life would be different for the worse if I wasn't someone who was just like ready to pump out an email to anyone at any time and ask for what I want. So I encourage you to get more comfortable with sending those emails, because you've got to give people the opportunity to say yes to you. You can't say no for them by not sending the email. If you've got nothing else out of this, I hope you've gotten that. Okay, I am going to go for a run on the beach before it gets dark and take care of, it's not even a New Year's resolution. I was doing this before New Year's. I'm going to take care of like a resolution I made months ago to spend more time on the beach and to exercise more. And I'm doing them at the same time by running on the beach. 2 birds, 1 stone. And I will come back later this week and talk about what we got into a little bit with how to publicize and leverage the opportunities once you have them, like podcasts, guest blogs, and that sort of thing. Thank you, Veronica, for joining me and chatting with me, and everyone else who was here. I hope you had a fantastic Wednesday so far and a good first week of 2019. I will chat with you again soon.